everybody, hi, it's Becky from Power Tools with Thread. I need to move. I've got a boo or a ghost right around my head. I need to change that out. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to put together the blocks for the Designs by JuJu Halloween placemat. And a lot of you already know how to do the individual embroidery, and you don't really need instruction on that, so that's why this video is separate, telling you just how to put it together. There are going to be additional videos coming out showing you how to do each individual block, and you can look at those if you are so inclined. But this particular video is just about my techniques that I use to sew it together and put the backing on and self-bind it. Right at the end, I ran out of room on my memory chip on my camera. I apologize. So it kind of just ends before I finish, wouldn't you know, that one last seam. After I finished putting the binding on with Steam-A-Seam, and you will see me do that, and I'll explain it here in just a little bit, but after you see me do that, I did take this over to the sewing machine and I stitched 1/8 inch away from the edge of the binding where it was folded over right next to the blocks. So I hope you find this video helpful. If you're wondering how to put this thing together, I hope this will help. So now the way these go together is we're going to sew this one to this one, and we're going to create this block. And we're going to sew this one to this one and create that block. And then we're going to sew this block, this block. We're going to sew these two together, okay? And then we're going to sew these to right here. And when you sew these, if your seam allowances are not, they don't match up these these border lines right here. That's what you want to match up more so. See, if they're even on the bottom, they're off on the top, okay? You don't want to worry so much about this. You want to worry about matching up this seam line right here with that seam line right there, okay? That's what you want to match up and get straight. Now you're supposed to trim out this extra stabilizer out of the seam allowance, and then just hold it up like this and kind of slide them as opposed to slice with your, you know, you don't want to do that. That's a little bit better. That's okay. But it doesn't really matter. To me, depending on the stabilizer that you use, mine is so lightweight, it's not that big of a deal. So to me, this is just an extra step. I definitely would not do this with a rotary cutter, because I will, whoops, see, I even cut off the wrong side. I will mess it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pin and I'm going to, right here on the corner where these stitching lines are, I'm going to take my pin and go in one, and I'm going to go in right here. So I have married those up, and I'm going to hold the pin horizontally. Okay? You want that pin horizontal like that. And I'm going to take another pin and I'm going to go in one side of the stitch line and out the other, so that they are anchored in that very spot. And then I'm going to take this pin again and go in this corner, and then I'm going to go in this corner and anchor them like that, and get that pin horizontal, and then take another pin and go in one side and out the other of that seam line. So what you have done is you've anchored it so they're not going to shift at all. Now I'm going to sew, and you want to sew just on the inside of this stitch line right here. So see, it doesn't even matter that the edges are not even here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to pull out this horizontal pin. So now let me show you how nice that turns out. I'm going to make sure that my needle hits. I'm going to run the inside of this particular toe right along on that stitch line, and that's going to there we go. It's going to keep it nice and straight. Let's see how we did. It's perfect. So my lines here meet up on these block lines. That's exactly what you're after, so that these meet. All right? And your inner block lines in here are captured inside the seam allowance. That's exactly what we want. So let's go put the rest of them together. All right, so we want the owl to the spider web. Okay, make sure we got that right. All right, I'm going to go in this corner right there, and I'm going to go in that corner right there. Level them up, get that pin horizontal. There we go. And if you got a knot and you can't see, you can always just kind of eyeball it from the front. And because I got a big knot there, I don't know about y'all. Enough for government work. I'll put that in this one. There. Hold it horizontal. In one side, out the other. There. Okay. That looks pretty good. Right along that outer seam line. Ooh, don't run over your pins. You'll bend a needle. Especially if you have a single hole needle plate like I do. I got a little anxious there and forgot I had a pin in there. Oh, that looks perfect. Look at that. That looks great. I need to get these little fuzzies. Very nice. You're going to want to press your seams open, y'all. Oh, I didn't trim that batting out of there. Look at that. That I need to do. I didn't trim the batting. Not a showstopper, not a big deal. I'm going to go press my seams open. Now the nice thing about these two is that you don't have to try to nest these seams. They're designed not to connect with each other, so that's great. So we're going to do this. I'm going to go through the same exercise here of going in the corner with the pin and going into the corner. Yeah, hold it horizontal and go in one side of the seam line and out the other. And same here. It's that tack down stitch that you're marrying up for the background fabric, and that's what's making it look right. Okay, and on this one, what I am going to do is in the middle, because we've got such a long distance and you can easily shift. In the middle, I'm just going to find a spot right on that outside line, And I'm going to put it even, I'll go into the tree trunk there. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to put it here and put it even with this one. Yep. And then in one side, out the other. There. I'm going to do the same thing here. They're puffy. It's okay. There. Okay, so when you're doing this, thumb under, fingers on top, and give it some pull to get those heavy layers to go through, unless you're using a walking foot. Oh yeah, that's what we're after. That's gonna work. Now I need to put the boo on top of the cat. So I'm gonna put this together and in here. Get that pin horizontal. In one side, out the other. Right there. There. In one side, out the other. Okay. Oh, that looks good. Perfect, perfect. I forgot to take this out of my boo block. I'm going to go press my seams open. Now, put this onto here. I'm going to put my pin through. I can't hardly see that black on black. And I'm going to put a pin in the orange seam allowance just so it won't get caught up in the underneath, you know, fold the wrong way. My machine doesn't like this thread. Man, that turned out nice. Look at that. That is just beautiful. That looks so good. Okay, I'm gonna go press all these seams open and then put a backing on it and self-bind it, and I'll be done. And my thread came out again. Oh, this turned out so cute. So I am going to just put a backing on this, and I'm gonna stitch in the ditch. And just to secure that is all I'm gonna do, and then self-bind it. So let me find a piece of fabric. They used orange. I've got some tree fabric maybe. Nah. Maybe I'll use orange too. Let me see what I can find. That'll work. That'll look really good. Okay, you want to cut your fabric an inch larger all the way around, at least, because you want to fold it up and then fold it up again so it will go over and cover that stitching line. All right, that's how I'm going to do it, is just like that. Okay, so that's how I'm going to finish out my placemat. So this is just a rough cut, and what I'm going to go do now is go ahead and stitch in the ditch and get this anchored down so that if it wants to draw up at all, it can do that before I finish the binding. Okay, I have trimmed this to 1 inch all the way around with my backing, and I stabilized it by stitching in the ditch with black on the front and white on the back, so you really can't see it too badly out back there. That looks pretty nice. And what I'm going to do is take this over to the ironing board, and I am going to fold in. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use some steam-a-seam, and I'm going to put it right on the inside of this line right here. And to get this 1 inch cut, I measured 1.5 inches from this sewing line right there, that seam allowance line. I'm going to put steam-a-seam right there. I'm going to fold it up, and it's going to stick with steam-a-seam, which will come out in the wash. This is steam-a-seam light, but once I get it exactly so that it looks right, then I will go back and I will do a narrow 1/8 inch stitch line right next to this inner fold. And that will allow me to get my miters real nice on my corners and everything without having to fiddle with it at the sewing machine. So I'm using 1/4 inch steam-a-seam 2. And the easiest way to get this to work is to peel the paper off while it's still warm. I actually don't use steam on it at all. So I'm just going to place it. It's kind of got a little bit of a sticky to it. And I am placing it just under that black tacked out stitch there. Okay. And I'm just going to touch it a tiny bit with the iron. No steam. But it peels off easiest when it's warm. Once it cools off, it starts giving you attitude. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to fold this in until it is just at the edge. Repeat here. I'm almost done. I'm in the home stretch, so I'm going to finish this up. So I'm just going to fold this into the edge. All right. And then I'm going to fold this up onto the steam-a-seam. This way I know my binding is all the same width. You get a much nicer finish by gluing it first. There, that looks pretty good. Okay, now let's do this side. You guys, that's it. This was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed making it, and I can't wait to make some more. I know that there are autumn and Christmas placemats coming out, and the process for the applique embroidery and putting them together is pretty much the same. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope you had a good time with me. We'll talk to you soon. Go sew something. Bye.